Imagine this, a group of bright university students, full of dreams and laughter, board a bus heading home for the holidays. But what they didn't know was that this journey would end in a way so chilling, so mysterious, that even the elders in the village whispered it might be the work of restless spirits. Stay with me as I tell you the tale of the haunted bus, a story that will send shivers down your spine and make you question the unknown. It was the first week of December, a time when the air was filled with joy. The semester had just ended, and students from Kisiwa University were eager to head home to their families. The group of 24 students boarded a bright yellow bus early in the morning. They were excited, singing, laughing, and planning how they would spend their holidays. The driver, a man known as Mzi Omori, was cheerful. He had been driving for over 20 years and assured everyone that they would reach their destination safely. "Don't worry," he said with a wide grin, "this bus knows every road like the back of my hand." As the bus left the city and rode into the open countryside, the mood inside was festive. Someone had brought a small speaker and started playing music. The students clapped and sang along. It seemed like nothing could go wrong. But as the hours passed, something strange began to happen. The first sign was the weather. Out of nowhere, dark clouds began to gather. The sun disappeared, and the once clear skies turned grey. It was unusual for December, a month known for its warm, sunny days. Some students joked, maybe the heavens are jealous of our fun. But others felt uneasy. Suddenly, the bus's radio turned on by itself. Static filled the air, followed by a low, eerie hum. Mzi Omari frowned. "That's odd," he muttered, fiddling with the dials. But the radio wouldn't turn off. Instead, a strange voice came through. It was faint, almost like a whisper, saying something no one could understand. By now, the students had fallen silent. The bus's engine began to sputter, and the lights flickered. It was as if the bus itself was reacting to something unseen. Mzi Omori pulled over and checked under the hood. Everything seemed fine, so he started the engine again. But as they drove on, the tension grew. About an hour later, they reached a dense forest. The trees were tall and twisted, their branches reaching out like skeletal arms. The road ahead was shrouded in mist. "We should have taken the highway," one student whispered. But Mzi Omori insisted this was the fastest route. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the atmosphere grew heavier. Then, out of the mist, a figure appeared on the road. It was a woman dressed in white, her long hair covering her face. Mzi Omori slammed on the brakes, and the bus came to a screeching halt. But when they looked again, the woman was gone. Everyone was on edge now. The students, who had been so lively earlier, were whispering nervously among themselves. One of them, a girl named Amina, suggested they say a prayer. "We don't know what's out there," she said. "Better safe than sorry." The group agreed, and a quiet prayer was said as the bus moved forward. Minutes later, the bus suddenly stopped. This time, it wasn't Mzi Omori's doing. The engine had died completely. He tried turning the key, but nothing happened. "Everyone stay inside," he instructed, stepping out to inspect the vehicle. The students huddled together, their eyes darting to the windows, trying to peer through the thick mist. Then they heard it, a soft, mournful singing. It was coming from somewhere deep in the forest. The melody was hauntingly beautiful but filled with sorrow. "What is that?" whispered a boy named Jamal. No one had an answer. Mzi Omori returned, looking pale. "The engine, it's fine," he said hesitantly. "But it won't start. I think we'll have to wait for help." His words did little to comfort the group. As night fell, the students decided to stay inside the bus, hoping that morning light would bring clarity. But sleep was impossible. The strange singing continued, growing louder at times, then fading away. Shadows seemed to move just beyond their line of sight, and every now and then, there was a faint tapping on the windows. No one dared to look. At midnight, the bus's lights flickered back on by themselves. The radio crackled to life again, playing the same eerie hum as before. But this time, the voice was clearer. "Leave, now," it said, each word slow and deliberate. A chill ran through everyone. "What does it mean?" someone whispered. No one could answer. A sudden bang on the roof made everyone jump. It sounded like something heavy had landed there. Mzi Omori grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside, despite the students' protest. "Stay inside," he repeated firmly. He disappeared into the mist, his flashlight beam barely visible. Minutes passed, and he didn't return. Panic set in. "We need to find him," Amina said. "We can't just leave him out there." A few brave students agreed to go with her, while the rest stayed behind, locking the bus doors. As the search party ventured into the forest, the mist seemed to thicken around them. The singing grew louder, and they could now make out words, though the language was unfamiliar. Then they saw it, a figure standing under a massive tree. It was the woman in white. Her face was still obscured by her hair, but her presence was overwhelming. She raised an arm and pointed at them. The group froze, unable to move or speak. Then, without warning, she vanished, leaving only the echo of her song. They found Mzi Omori lying unconscious near the tree. He was unharmed but deeply shaken. "She spoke to me," he whispered as they carried him back to the bus. "She said we've disturbed her rest." The group decided to leave the bus and walk back to the nearest town. It was a risk, but staying felt more dangerous. They formed a single file and began their trek, using their phone flashlights to light the way. The mist seemed to follow them, and the singing never stopped. Hours later, just as dawn broke, they emerged from the forest. The sunlight was a welcome relief, and the singing finally ceased. They flagged down a passing car and explained their ordeal. The driver, an older man from a nearby village, looked grim. "You were in the cursed forest," he said. "Many have gone in but few come out." Back at the university, the students and Mzi Omori shared their story. Some believed them, others dismissed it as an elaborate tale. But for those who were there, the memory of that night in the forest would haunt them forever. Weeks later, the bright yellow bus was found abandoned at the edge of the forest. Its engine was intact, but it wouldn't start. And inside, on one of the windows, was a handprint that didn't belong to any of the students or Mzi Omori. To this day, no one knows what truly happened that night. "Did you see that?" one of the students asked, his voice trembling. "It's just your imagination," Mzi Omori said, though his hands were shaking. He restarted the bus and drove on, but the students knew something wasn't right. Minutes later, it happened. The bus's engine roared uncontrollably. The vehicle sped up on its own, careening down the winding road. Mzi Omori shouted, "The brakes aren't working. Hold on." The students screamed as the bus swerved left and right. Then, with a deafening crash, it hit a tree and flipped over. When the dust settled, the scene was horrifying. The bus lay on its side, shattered like a broken toy. Of the 24 students, 15 had died instantly. The survivors, injured and terrified, crawled out of the wreckage. But what happened next was even stranger. One of the students, a girl named Amina, claimed she saw the woman in white standing near the bus, watching them. "She's here," Amina screamed. "She's the one who caused this." The villagers nearby heard the crash and came running. They helped the injured and called for ambulances. But when the police arrived, they found something baffling. The bus's brakes were perfectly fine, and the engine showed no signs of malfunction. There was no logical explanation for the accident. The survivors spoke of the strange events, the radio, the mist, the woman in white. The elders in the village whispered about a ghost said to haunt the forest. According to legend, a young woman had died there years ago in a similar accident. Her spirit, they said, still roamed the area, seeking revenge. Some dismissed it as superstition, but others weren't so sure. To this day, the road remains a mystery. The students who survived say they'll never forget what they saw and felt. And every December, villagers light candles by the roadside, praying for the souls lost in the haunted forest. The night of the accident became a turning point in the lives of the survivors. They were taken to a nearby hospital where their injuries were treated. The trauma, however, lingered. Amina couldn't shake off the image of the woman in white. She began having nightmares where the woman appeared, pointing at her and whispering in an unknown language. Jamal, another survivor, became withdrawn. Once an outgoing student, he now spent his days reading about paranormal phenomena. "I need answers," he told anyone who asked. "There's something out there, something we don't understand." The university held a memorial for the students who had passed away. Families traveled from far and wide to attend, mourning their loved ones. The vice-chancellor gave a speech, but it was Amina's words that resonated with everyone. "We lost so much that night," she said, her voice breaking. "But we also saw something that defies logic. We owe it to the ones we lost to find out the truth." Encouraged by her words, a group of survivors decided to return to the forest a year later. They wanted closure. Armed with cameras, flashlights, and prayers, they ventured back into the mist-shrouded woods. This time, they were determined to face whatever awaited them. As they walked, the memories came flooding back, the singing, the radio, the crash. The forest seemed alive, its trees whispering secrets they couldn't understand. Then, they saw it, the same massive tree where they had found Mzi Omori unconscious. It stood like a sentinel, its twisted branches reaching for the sky. Amina stepped forward, clutching a small candle. "We mean no harm," she said aloud. "We just want to understand." She placed the candle at the base of the tree and lit it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the air grew colder. The group huddled together as a mist began to form around the tree. From the mist emerged the woman in white. This time, her face was visible. She was young, with sorrowful eyes and a pale complexion. She raised a hand, not in threat but in a gesture of longing. "Who are you?" Amina asked, her voice trembling. The woman didn't speak but pointed to a spot near the tree. The group began digging and soon unearthed a small wooden box. Inside were a few personal items, a locket, a diary, and a photograph of a young couple. The diary revealed the woman's name, Nolia. She had died decades ago in a tragic accident while traveling to meet her fiancé. Her spirit had remained, bound by grief and a sense of injustice. "She's been waiting for someone to find her," Jamal said, tears in his eyes. The group decided to give Nolia a proper burial. With the help of the villagers, they arranged a small ceremony. Prayers were said, and her belongings were laid to rest. As the final words were spoken, the mist began to lift. For the first time in years, sunlight pierced through the forest canopy. The hunting stopped after that. The road, once avoided by locals, became just another path through the woods. But for the survivors, it was more than that. It was a place where they had faced their fears and found a way to heal. Amina and Jamal later co-wrote a book about their experience, blending their personal stories with local folklore. It became a bestseller, sparking debates about the supernatural and the power of unresolved emotions. The royalties from the book were used to set up a scholarship fund in memory of the students who had lost their lives. Years later, Amina returned to the forest with her own children. She showed them the tree and told them the story, not as a tale of horror but as a lesson in compassion and courage. "Sometimes," she said, the past reaches out to us, not to scare us but to be understood. The forest, once a place of fear, had become a symbol of resilience and redemption. And every December, candles still flicker by the roadside, not out of dread but in remembrance and hope. Thank you for listening to this chilling tale. What do you think happened that day? Was it just a tragic accident, or could it be the work of restless spirits? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel for more incredible stories from Africa and beyond. Stay safe, and remember, not all roads lead home.